Now that we've entered the spooky month, it's time to talk about some horror themes. A staple of horror is the blood, guts, and gore. But what if we turned the tables and instead of it being a disadvantage to have your blood on the outside, you could reversal your enemy and manipulate it to be a useful tool in battle? This video will go over characters that can use blood for the sake of fighting, trickery, or self-defense, like turning it into a weapon, using it for defense or healing, or manipulating an opponent's blood as if you have grabbed them from the inside. That'll teach them for having a circulatory system. A side note is I will be excluding confirmed vampire characters from this list, since I've had a couple of lists already that cover that creature exclusively. So these are my top 10 characters with blood manipulation powers. Number 10, Carnage from Spider-Man. Carnage is terrifying. You give a serial killer giant mutant symbiote monster powers. Despite the red color, his blood manipulation is not notably used for offensive techniques. He's just red because his blood is fused with the symbiote alien attaching itself to him, kinda like when you mix your bright colors and your white clothes in the wash. His main blood technique is when the symbiote exterior gets damaged or torn off him, he can bleed on that area of his body to restore that part of the symbiote. His blood essentially creates armor so his creamy human interior won't be exposed if the tough alien exterior takes a hit. Other than that, blood just kinda goes along with his theme. When he first appeared, he wrote Carnage rules on the wall with his blood, showing off his excellent bloody calligraphy skills, and writing Carnage rules is something I'd more expect from a radical cool 90s dude rather than a psychotic serial killer. Number 9, Gamma from Yu Yu Hakusho. Gamma is part of Team Masho, a group of shinobi whose members seem to each have a power based on the elements of nature. You have wind, earth, ice, water, and blood. Blood's that element that burns things and is really hot, right? In actuality, Gamma's main gimmick is body paint, or makeup that has his blood infused into it to give the makeup its true power. I'm not sure what special biological component his blood contains, but it's more than just platelets. When presenting this technique, Gamma tells us the story about how makeup was actually created by demons to enhance their strength, and humans use it all wrong. So if you're wearing makeup out there, you could actually punch a hole through the wall with ease, and I don't suggest trying to do it. His blood-infused makeup increases his spirit energy, making him a dangerous close combat fighter, and he can paint seals on his opponent with this makeup to make their limbs feel as if they're carrying thousands of pounds. Even if Gamma's losing, he could still have an advantage since his blood does not need to be mixed with makeup ingredients to be effective. Don't let his blood spill on you, not just because it's unsanitary, but also because it can create a curse that seals his opponent's spirit energy inside of them. This technique is called Makeup of the Seal, so I'm not actually sure if that's just his pure blood or if he somehow has makeup in his veins. Either way, buy it at Macy's today. Number 8, Inuyasha from Inuyasha. Everyone's favorite half-dog demon, half-human has dabbled in the realm of blood attacks. Hijin Kesso, or Blades of Blood, is an attack Inuyasha would pull out when he was externally bleeding. By dousing his claws in his own blood, he could fire these projectile blood claw blades to bombard his foe, all while yelling the name of this reversal attack.
Blades of Blood! Except more manly. Blades of Blood! Not that deep. Blades of Blood.
Okay, I think they get the idea, random co-host girl cameo.
Oh thanks, I'm trying.
Its main drawback is that it requires an open wound to activate.
Well, if you're bleeding, you might as well use it. That is just wasteful.
We hardly see this attack later in the series, so it's probably his most forgettable reoccurring technique.
That's because he gets a sword. He doesn't need it anymore. Maybe he just gets beat up less.
Yeah, he eventually learns the backlash wave, which counters his opponent's move before it hits him, so it's like Blades of Blood if he didn't have to get injured in the first place.
Thumbs up, Inuyasha. Good job for getting stronger. Yay!
Number 7, Vlad King from My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia has become a show where if it covers a superpower I'm making a video on, it will likely have a representative on that list. They show off so many unique twists on classic powers with personalities that make the characters worth rooting for. That being said, Vlad King has not done much in the series. His power is cool, but his ranking feels like it should be higher on this list if he just got more than one chance to fight briefly. His quirk is blood control, where he can release pools of blood from his glove and surround the opponent. The blood then crystallizes to entrap whoever he's attacking, and if you're worried about him getting lightheaded lightheaded from the blood loss, have no fear because he can reabsorb any blood he releases. While we only have a small sample size of Vlad King's powers, if he ever gets some more fighting screen time, no doubt we'll see further creativity from this hero. Number 6. Scarlet from Mortal Kombat. Scarlet is Emperor Shao Kahn's creation using a tiny bit of magic and the blood of warriors spilled in his coliseum over the centuries. Wholesome. He chains her up in there, not to punish her, but to allow her to soak up blood from any battles. Her real origin was from players claiming that Kitana or Melina's color palette in Mortal Kombat 2 would glitch out to become red. That rumor was based on the real glitch in Mortal Kombat 1 where Scorpion would turn red, which the creators eventually turned into a real character, Ermac. The creators once again decided to roll with Scarlet's concept and made her real as they did with Ermac. Since the series is so bloody, they decided, let's just make a character that embodies that. She's red already. With her body composition made of blood and just blood, she can liquefy like she's a regular Alex Mack and teleport around. However, she's essentially harmless as a pool of blood, so she still has to reform to do any damage. She can also use blood as an oil slick on herself to make her faster and even use it as a projectile, but with the trade-off of hurting herself. With her being a minor character that was never involved in the story until the Mortal Kombat X comic, there's a lot of details unknown about her, so I can't say how invulnerable she is being only a liquid. What I can say though is Melina once took out Scarlet's legs and Scarlet's reaction was less, "No, I need those," and more, "Ah god, this is really inconveniencing." That being said, she absorbs the blood from other warriors that she fights post-victory to become more powerful, so maybe she can also reform limbs that way.
Scarlet wins.
Number 5. Hama the Bloodbender from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Bloodbending allows the user to pull and twist the bloodstream of their target, making them essentially a puppet and at the will of the Bloodbender. Bloodbending became semi-commonplace in the Avatar universe over time, however Hama introduced us to the concept, showing us how and why someone would need to abuse this dark power. Only waterbenders can utilize this technique due to the aquatic nature of blood, but what makes this technique a bigger rarity is that it can only be used during a full moon. This is when waterbenders reach their peak in strength, giving bloodbending this supernatural feel. Hama learned this technique out of desperation after being imprisoned by the Fire Nation and left without any form of water to defend herself with. After practicing and mastering the technique on rats that crawled around in her cell, she controlled the guards to free her. Then she never used bloodbending again since that would be immoral and unnecessary. Just kidding, she atrociously abuses this technique. She uses bloodbending to immobilize and capture any innocent villagers of the Fire Nation to exact revenge on the Fire Nation, solely for the fact that they are indirectly related to the nation that attacked her village. And thus, we see how she became as corrupted as her captors. Hama's bloodbending reveal and fight has this dark, ominous tone, making it a perfect episode for Halloween and a perfect talking point for this Halloween list. Number 4. Every character from the anime Dead Man Wonderland. While I mostly mean that in jest, have you seen all the powers in this anime? Nearly everyone can manipulate their blood in a different manner. You have blood blades, blood fists, blood whips, blood insert your favorite weapon here. I guess if I had to choose one character, my brain says I should go with the protagonist Ganta, who has the most potential. He can throw a basic fireball of blood, nothing too fancy about it, but it's powerful. It can become a super destructive blood ball, so it wins in the strength department. Shiro would be another good pick, as she can completely regenerate wounded parts of her body and even internal organs using her blood. She also has other major blood powers, but those would require major blood spoilers. However, if I had to choose a favorite application of blood manipulation in this show, it would be the character Minatsuki. She creates blood whips with her hair. I love hair manipulation powers, and Minatsuki got a little spotlight on my list covering that topic. This girl is insane in her main fight in the anime. She uses her hair blood to grab and slam, extending it indefinitely. And she's a great multitasker, as she can hold someone hostage with some tendrils of hair blood and attack with the other side of her head. Even though she makes some less than appealing facial expressions, her hair is always in style as it freely flows with the blood of victory, or maybe defeat if you watch her fight. Number 3, Jeddah Doma from Darkstalkers. I don't know what Jeddah's anatomy is like, since he's not like any fictional monster I've seen before. His body scythe makes him like a Grim Reaper, but his powers just make him a scary dude. He can segment his body parts, having them still connected to his body with a thick stream of blood, so it's almost like he can stretch his limbs with his blood control. He can do the Sea Viper ground pound, where instead of using seismic explosions, it's just a massive spurt of blood that sometimes has blood hands coming out of it. Considering Jeddah is this Shinigami type of character, I assume these are the hands of the souls that he's reaped coming back for revenge. The blood hands drag you into a stream of blood to beat the blood out of you as Jeddah bloodily laughs. With that attack description, I think he really wanted a spot on this list. He even has a super move showing off where he gets these souls from using more blood powers. He summons a giant hand of blood to make you sign a contract with all your blood to join him for the short time of eternity. All he needs in exchange is one measly soul. What's that? You only have one soul? Well, you signed the contract in your blood already, under duress, so sorry. Number 2, Krona from Soul Eater. It helps when your blood's alive, technically. Krona's wicked mother Medusa melted a piece of his screaming sword Ragnarok and some magic into his bloodstream to turn it black. Now, his blood can not only defend and fight for him, but it's alive to some extent. Ragnarok can emerge as this Agent Venom looking fellow and assist, or more override, Krona in battle. Basically, Krona's blood can summon a demon that can turn into a sword. With Ragnarok living in Krona's bloodstream, besides coming out for the assist, he can control Krona's blood if he's injured. He hardens the blood around Krona's open wound, making the external bleeding only an advantage. Now, when his skin is sliced, the blood stops any weapons from cutting beyond an artery, and with Krona's blood out from that harmless gash, the fun can begin. Beads of blood can float in the air and then turn into spikes that vary in length, or he can go for a sharp boomerang made of blood that he willingly creates. He can even use Ragnarok's transforming powers to create wings and turn into a blood dragon. The big downside to having all of these options with his black blood is it's pretty unstable at times. It can cause the user to be more erratic with attacks, which could be an advantage in some cases considering the unpredictability. We also learn that internal damage from forceful punches and attacks that don't break the skin can bypass activating the black blood. Then again, getting punched in the face hard enough can be a disadvantage to anyone. With most blood users I could think of being from anime and fighting games, my honorable mentions will combine those. Naoto Kurogane from BlazBlue. Blood sword, blood axe, blood scythe, yeah, he knows the best weapons to make with his power. A shame he just missed out, since I gotta respect a man who uses a blood shark. Carmine from Under Night in Birth. He received his blood powers for the small price of his life force. He has some fang action going on right here, so maybe he's a vampire and couldn't have made this list anyway. Either way, he shows his hand on what his powers may be by showing you his hand. And
oh, I finally thought of a character for the blood list.
Who would that be?
There's Retsu from Bleach. She has this sword that when she knocks the Bankai, it just turns into blood. There's just blood everywhere.
I mean, it's a good idea, but didn't I tell you about this list 2 weeks ago? We just did numbers 10 through 2 and number 1's already been decided.
Okay, she can be an honorable mention.
Oh, that's very agreeable. For a second I thought you were gonna argue that she should be number 5 or something like that.
Yeah, she should be number 5.
Oh god, abort, just go to number 1.
What are you doing?
For number 1, I may not be going with the most well-known franchise, but this character has some of the most creative blood constructs I've seen in fiction, along with an interesting way she obtained her powers. Plus, it's a franchise I talk about a lot, so maybe you saw this coming. Number 1. Eliza from Skullgirls. Eliza's a lounge singer who has seen fame worldwide. She seems like a benevolent celebrity who hosts blood drives for charity. However, those are all ruses as she steals all the earnings, and I'm not talking about any money. She takes the blood, and that's probably the least nefarious thing about her. She can absorb blood from others to keep herself looking young and basically stay immortal. Her Cleopatra-esque theme is not just dress up. She's actually from ancient Egypt and has been successful at obtaining blood all these years. This is all possible thanks to her parasite Sekhmet, who replaced Eliza's normal skeleton and has a personality of her own, which is mostly just kill, destroy. In-game, Sekhmet can run around and do Eliza's bidding for a short period of time, but he uses her meter, which is why she cannot stay out for long. I like to imagine it's just because the skeleton gets cold. When Sekhmet's out, the rest of Eliza stands by in a blood sarcophagus, segueing us to her main blood manipulation power, the constructs. She's a regular Green Lantern with everything she creates. There's lots of imagination to not only make each object with solid blood, but reference various aspects of Egyptian culture. Since it would take many minutes to explain each reference, here are some of my favorites. She turns into the Sphinx and sneezes off her nose, bloodily. She hedonistically rides in a blood barge, or sometimes Sobek, the god of strength. She creates a blood snake and can cut it as an attack, which I believe is a reference to Apep, the Egyptian god of chaos who was also a snake, and defeated by sun god Ra, who turned into a cat and sliced up the snake god. And then there's this thing. I don't know what it is, but it's an Egyptian reference. My favorite attack is her super move where she references the Egyptian goddess Nekbet by turning her arms into blood wings and her feet into blood claws.
No mercy! Clutches of eternity!
The creators really did their research and it shows. There are plenty of other references in her attacks, but she can also manipulate blood in other aspects of fighting. Her blocking animation creates this blood shield with a royal Egyptian emblem, and when she recovers from a fall, she mummifies herself in blood and rises like a horror movie mummy. And all the bloody attacks and animations expose a portion of her skeleton depending on how much blood is used in not covering her body. It's like a more extreme version of how Bayonetta uses her hair for clothing and fighting. A final note, I like when she gets hit, her body looks unstable from these powers, like she can manipulate her blood so freely because her body could fall apart at the slightest hit. All that innovation with her blood as a weapon makes her my top blood manipulator in fiction.
Yes, I am rich.
So what did you think? Agree? Disagree? What other blood manipulators deserve some spotlight? Let me know in the comments. While I was working on this video, the topic was also suggested by viewers SolarFlare95 and Yang vs Ryu, so congrats on predicting the future. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.